IAM is changing right now. And if you are someone who is trying to get into identity and access management, you have probably heard the new term identity security. It's on the job posts, every vendor documentation, and people think that maybe IAM is old news and this identity security is some new kid on the block replacing IAM. In this video, I will tell you exactly what is changing, what this identity security means, and what is not changing, and how it is going to change the way you learn IAM. A quick word before. I'm Srinath. I've been working in identity and access management for the last 18 years, and I'm still working in IAM space. Also, I run Simplify IAM community, where there are free labs, concepts you can understand, and a big community where people trying to make a career in IAM. If you are someone who is also on the same journey, check the link in the description or just comment identity, and then I will send you the link. All right, now let's get back to our discussion about identity security and IAM. Identity security is not new that is replacing IAM, but adding a security layer on top of it. IAM is always about administration. What I mean by that is if somebody is joining the company, it gives access, it takes out the access and making sure the governance related layer is already there, making sure the access given to employees and service accounts is in right order at the right place. And when they leave, taking out those access and making sure employees gets easily signed into different applications based on a single sign-on mechanisms and much more around this. But identity security is actually making sure all of this is done as per the IAM processes, but it's making sure whoever gets the access, it's verifying those access, whether that person or non-human identity is actually the one that is getting the correct access by means of zero trust procedures. That's the story about identity security in short. IAM is kind of administrative function which is always there, and identity security is adding security layer on top of it along with what is there in identity and access management right now. Let's take a step back and go back to a few years until recently. Identity and access management used to be, like I said, giving access to an employee when they joined. It's kind of joiner, mover, lever process. We do not have to go in depth in this video. There are other videos you can check out on this channel which explains about all these processes in identity and access management. But it was enough until recently because the company infrastructure was in a different shape back then. There was a wall which is kind of security infrastructure which is protecting everything happening internal to the company network by means of firewalls and other peripheral security components. That old model started to break. So what changed and why identity security is such a big trend right now, or a terminology that is being mostly used? It's mainly because of three things, and those things changed identity and access management from a kind of administrative and governance function into a security one, and it actually made a center of security perimeter these days. The first one is the entire security infrastructure wall came down, which means companies started moving their services into cloud. So there is no inside the company, outside the company anymore, because companies started having their services, their infrastructure, both internal to the company as well as most of their critical infrastructure moved to cloud, SaaS apps. That's why the old model of securing just the perimeter is gone. And the second thing that has changed is important one, which is the thing I want you to remember, is the bad guys, or let's say the hackers, stop attacking the security parameter components like firewall and everything that were actually protecting these critical components like IAM, and they are starting to use the identity as the new attack parameter or attack vector. Think about that. Why would anyone want to break the wall like a firewall when they can just steal somebody's password or somebody's access and started accessing all the important information related to a company or related to that particular person who is working for a company, or it could also be a customer that is using a company services. So that brings us to the core point of this video, which is the identity. Because of this identity theft happening everywhere now, identity has become the new security parameter, and securing that identity is becoming a bigger problem to resolve these days for the companies, and especially with identity and access management functionality. Still, there is a third factor which is also changing why identity and access management, which is explosion of identities that the IAM system starting to manage or govern. For example, with the explosion of APIs and the SaaS services are being integrated using API keys, these API keys should be managed by IAM system. In addition, nowadays with AI agents, each of the AI agents are using their own agentic identities, and managing these agentic identities is also coming under the umbrella of identity and access management, because IAM was never built majorly for securing the non-human identities, and it was always meant for managing company employees or the company users. But with the explosion of non-human identities by means of APIs and SaaS services and AI agents is the reason the whole concept of identity security or securing the identity came into picture. And that's where all the product vendors are actually going towards right now. But the things still remain the same. You should still solidify your understanding of IAM functionalities and concepts. It is just a new term, identity security, and you would probably learn more things on top, how to secure the identity by means of zero trust and all the verification processes and other functionalities here, like that intelligence that are baked into these IAM products. There is no change, and whatever way you are working, that still remains. It's just an extra added layer on what you are learning to keep yourself up to date with the things that are coming up in IAM. Put all those three together into one, which is the security parameter is gone, which is the wall or firewalls which are safeguarding the company infrastructure is gone now. Everything is moving to cloud and SaaS service. And with that, the identity is becoming the target. And third is millions of non-human identities are coming into picture by means of API keys, SaaS service accounts, and also AI agentic identities. If you see, this is not a simple admin or a governance functionality or a job that could be done. It is more becoming a frontline security of an organization. And that is exactly why the importance of securing the identity, whether it could be a human or non-human, is becoming of utmost importance for the company. That's why the term identity security came into picture. Identity security adds the whole security or watching behavior on the IAM function within the company. For example, when somebody is always logging in from London at 9 a.m. in the morning, if they log in from elsewhere, now IAM functionality is the one which goes to alert the team, security team, that there is something wrong with a particular employee and what access that they are accessing with the new functionality, new location, for example. So if you see, it's actually catching the threats live and not catching them later with the changed access 3 months later as part of the access review anymore. And it also doesn't trust it immediately. It asks a question whether the particular thing is correct along with the password and if they are allowed to access at that particular time. So it's verifying it instead of just trusting it. It is the simplest way or example that we can use to differentiate between IAM and identity security. IAM asks one question: should this person be given access to this role or to this application? Whereas identity security asks a bigger question: is it the right access to this person at this moment in time to this particular application? And it's going to ask the same question across any identity, whether it's human or non-human, and it asks at a scale much bigger than all the traditional IAM systems. In simplest terms, again, it is still IAM plus a security brain that never switches off on top of identity and access management. Now, this is the part where some of the marketing material on the product vendors, which explains about identity security, might not tell you. Let's cover that as well. Some of this shift is completely real. The wall is completely gone. Attackers are using identity as the new security perimeter to attack. Non-human identity is very real with rise of AI agents, and it's growing at a rapid speed and companies needs to catch up. But some of the identity security branding is just repositioning by the IAM product vendors. Products are now renamed as identity security platforms. Mainly it's because security budgets are now bigger than earlier, because companies are deploying AI agents and non-human identities at a scale that they could not imagine before. That's why the security budgets are much bigger, and the bigger chunk also goes to managing these non-human identities. That's why most IAM product vendors are repositioning themselves as identity security platform. For example, SailPoint is pushing identity security cloud, which is their cloud product, and most of the things that they actually push is this identity security fabric stuff. Same thing with Okta, they call it as now identity security fabric. The underlying principles, concepts that were there always and will always be there in IAM never change. It is just what gets added and what is changing with rise of non-human identities and how things changed in the last decade or to with move of all the company's infrastructure to the cloud and SaaS-based services. That's the important thing you should remember, and you should not get anxious or nervous about, okay, what is this new term identity security and why I don't see any more IAM being used so often. Like I said, things are changing, but not so drastically changing for you when you want to get into IAM. Identity and security around it has been changed. It's just like a promotion to the identity and access management space to the next level. IAM used to be at the edge of the security, which means that there were other security components that were securing the company. Now, identity is at the center of the security for every organization, especially with rise of non-human identities, and they are at the multiples of human accounts within the company to manage, which is why identity has become such a security threat also for the companies, and they must protect it. And the advice does not change. Learn the fundamentals, IAM concepts, using the hands-on free IAM setups in the Simplify IAM community. The link is in the description. There are over 900 people who are actively learning identity and access management and trying to upskill themselves. Check it out. If this video has helped you understand what identity security is, please share and subscribe. See you in the next one.